loved ones and friends and colleagues did not get to experience with us here, at least on this earthly plane. And when I started to research, I realized that the timelines were filled with wars and protests and death, and I didn't want to talk about that. I wanted to talk about the wonderful things that have happened in the last 20 years that we wish we could have shared, the miraculous things. So I wrote a poem called Event Horizon, Impossible Tomorrows. And the meaning of Event Horizon, if you don't know, becomes clear as the poem proceeds. In the last 20 years, things once thought impossible made a home among the possible. A man leapt to earth from 24 miles in space and broke the sound barrier with only his body. A woman climbed to the top of Mount Everest, then descended nearly 7 miles to the deepest, darkest place on Earth, only to discover new species, wonder, and, impossibly, a single-use plastic bag. In the last 20 years, a black man wept at the death of 20 first graders, nuzzled noses with his wife as they danced, traded fist bumps with growing daughters, cavorted on all fours with a baby atop an impossible promise of out of many, one on the Oval Office rug, unafraid to show his humanity to an often hateful world. In the last 20 years, the curse of the Bambino was broken. The curse of the goat came undone at the 108-year-old seams, and a young gymnast, a living goat, invented feats beyond the bounds of human possibility, and then, even more courageously, said no to a world awaiting more. Our heroes. In the last 20 years, Nepalese tigers, Arabian unicorns, the black-footed ferret, these and other species stepped back from extinction's very brink. In the last 20 years, GPS searched for us, found us, guides us still to where we need to go. And a global network of curious cartographers mapped the entire human genome system as if it were a familiar route leading to a future where suffering is forever silenced. In the last 20 years, a forgiving pope vowed to accept all unions as holy in heaven's earth-bent eyes. Impossible? No, not to those with humble open hearts. In the last 20 years, a bit of God himself, the part that gives all other parts their width and height and weight, was confirmed in a collision of nearly impossible speed 600 feet below ground. And like Orpheus, like Odysseus, 33 Chilean miners made their way back from hell. In the last 20 years, gravity waved to an awed world, and scientists found water on Mars, evidence that life might have existed there once before death buried it in impossible depths of dust. In the last 20 years, the child who doesn't remember you, or barely remembers you, or who aches in remembering you, has had a child who never met you, and yet, impossibly, remembers you. A smiling face, a protagonist in tales twisted and twined together by the knitting needles of remembrance. In the last 20 years, a telescope looked into the ungodly eye of a black hole, a dark pupil surrounded by a bright ring of radiation revealing the edges of the event horizon, a place beyond which impossible speed must be achieved to escape doom. Impossible speed. Impossible. In this world of impossible things made possible, how could we have saved you? How could our urgency have given us impossible speed, impossible grace, impossible feats, impossible hope for 20 years of impossible tomorrows. Thank you.